There's, um, I didn't know we ain't gonna get nothing up. That's all right. We're gonna get to this though. Just bear with me. Matthew 13:24 through 30. And I'm just gonna, you guys can read along with me if you want to, but I'm gonna read this. I'm reading this out of the NASB, but um, so it says, Jesus presented another parable to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went away. But when the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the tares became evident also. The slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? Then how does it have tares? And he said to him, An enemy has done this. The slave said to him, Do you want us to go then and gather them up? The master says, No. So for while you are gathering up tares, you may uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, First gather up the tares and bind them into bundles and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. We just thank you, Lord, for your word. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. So what we're seeing here is when the seed, this is what came to me out of this. You guys, now I know this has got another meaning to it, and I know this becomes about the end of times, and you know that it is the angels that are the reapers that come to bring up the harvest, and that the servants who are here are not allowed to do this anyway. This is not their place, and this is not what they're supposed to be doing. But the master has left this to the end time, to the harvest. Um, so what I began to pull out of this, what God has begun to run over me with, is when you see this, you see that the seed has been identified. Okay, it began to show up. You can see that it's going to be wheat. You can see that it's going to be grain. But you also see about this time is when he notices that there's tares in the field also. So this is where we get the whole growing season from, because right now this is between what is the seed and what is the harvest. Right? You guys, I mean, I do a little gardening myself, a little bit, and everything we know, even from the biblical standpoint, has a season. Everything's got a season. At this time, this is a growing season. They've not yet bore full fruit. They're not ready for the harvest, but they're planted and identified, and they're coming up. They're coming up with things. They're coming up with problems. They're coming up with changes, with environmental stuff that's going on with them that nobody knows how it got there except for the master. And he said the enemy has done this. So I wanted to throw this out there. You guys, have you guys ever heard of? Now they done some study on some rats at one time, and so what they done with these rats, and this, believe me, this is not off topic. It's going to be right down the line. So what they done with these rats, they took a rat and they put it in a cage, and in the cage they gave it a bowl of food and they gave it two water bottles, and one of the water bottles had water in it, and the other water had in there had heroin or cocaine in it. One or the other, whatever they were putting in it. They separated them from everything else. The rat had nothing else to do. It was just in there to his own devices. So what they did then, they took another rat and they put it in a cage. And they gave it a bowl of food, and they gave it a water bottle with just water, and they gave it a water bottle with cocaine. But then they also gave the rat access to pretty much like a rat park. And it had other rats in it. And it had little wheels it could run on, and it had mazes it could go through. It had all this stuff that it could do. So you come to find out the first rat that they had in that scenario, that almost 100% of them OD'd. Right back to the water bottle every time, right back to the water bottle every time. The rat in the second scenario that wasn't separated from everything, guess how many of those overdosed? None. Not one. They were not separated. They had things in their life that was given to them for their good. They weren't separated. So none of them, even the ones who went and used the drug water from time to time, did it rarely and never become obsessed with it. Now, these are addictive substances we're talking about. So why wasn't the hook as strong? Because they wasn't separated from things. Hook didn't mean that much to them. They had other stuff to do. What I'm trying to tell you is that this was the environment that they put them in. The only thing that changed with these rats was the environment. They took one of them and separated, and they left the other one tied with everything that it needed to have. So what they found out was that this was an adaptation. This is what the rats did. They adapted to their environment. I'm going to tell you, this is not quite what God had intended for us. He says we're supposed to be overcomers. That the adaptation that he talks about for us is not supposed to be an adaptation, but what's he say for us to be? Transformed. Call that an adaptation if you want, but this is about being transformed into what he wants us to be. This is not about some kind of test subject that we are, even though it could probably be put to that point. I don't think that's God's intention. I think his intention from the beginning was to take back what was his, and we belong to him also. This is about choosing the right things, choosing the right actions, because we have access to all these things. Deuteronomy 30:19 says, I have set before you life and death, blessings and cursings, therefore choose life. You guys understand that this is what the rat did. The rat had the opportunity. They could have been a drug addict and overdosed just like OD'd like the other one. It would have just been a thing. I mean, you know what? They might not even been surprised about it. But the rat didn't choose death. It chose life. It had other things. It wasn't entangled with death. Just want you to know that we are planted. We are a determined seed with a root system of God. All right. We are not supposed to be entangled by the other root system. The one thing that we will have problems with the other root system, a lot of times, for one, it's underground and we don't see it. But we don't always recognize the other root system. We get hooked into these things about what we can see, just like an addict is to a drug. And the reason we do is because we get focused on the things that we see with our eyes. And I don't know about you, but I read my Bible and it says I'm not supposed to be looking at all this stuff with my eyes. It is my spiritual vision that is supposed to be what I run my life on. But when we look in the root systems, then with our natural eyes, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at root systems at all, but they're kind of chaotic. They look like a tree turned upside down, and you're trying to trace. And this would be the issue with it. Even if you could trace it back and find the right thing to be able to cut out and to remove, what would you tear up besides the bad root? This was the point of the master, to let it all grow together. We're not qualified, for one, to even do that. But it was not for us to do. Now, I know this is probably runs contrary to a lot of things that we believe about weeding stuff out of our lives. But I didn't say this. This is what the Bible told me. So you guys can reconcile that part of it. Because this is exactly what has happened, that the enemy has been working. He's working in the dark, and he's working underground, and he's working where we don't notice. And a lot of the things that he's been working on that's getting into our lives, we just think it's just part of life. And we let it affect us in that way. What the enemy has done is he has changed the environment, entangled your root system with his. And this is what he's trying to get you to do something that he can't do. Now, you guys, you believe this or not, he doesn't have the authority over your life. So he's trying to get something out of you that he can't do. But since he is shrewd and he is smart and he understands more about the spiritual world than we do. So this is what he's working on. So he's working on changing our environment. I want you to understand that he's changing the environment. The earth wasn't meant to be the way that it is, but it was left without a governor, and it rocks and it reels, groaning with the pains. This is what it does. That environment has changed because that's not what we started with. I don't remember hearing anything about that in the beginning. God created the heaven and the earth, and it didn't know what it was doing, so it just did whatever it wanted to do and said, no, we ain't going to let it do that. We're going to put a man in charge of it. And that was the way it was. Well, now we don't have that. So the system has been changed. The environment has been changed. So this is one of the things he done. He planted things in your life, and we believe these things to be detrimental to us. But God said we're overcomers. That's what we do. We were built for this stuff. We were built to overcome. We were built to grow in spite of. So one thing about us that can't be changed, if we come up as wheat, you can't change us. We're wheat. I don't know how much fruit you bear as wheat. I don't know how tall you grow. I don't know how big you get. I don't know anything about you. I just know that you're wheat. If you were planted as wheat and you came up as wheat, you're wheat. That's the way that it is. You don't change yet. That's what the enemy can't change. And since he can't destroy the fact that you're a wheat, what he's done, he started corrupting your environment. See, he can't destroy you, but maybe he can get you to destroy you. You think about all the issues and problems that we have in our lives. And I mean, you could go down through a list of them. And I'll just about lay money if I name 5 of them off that probably everybody in here has at least one of them. We're not going to point fingers though, because then they'll be looking at me too. So what he's trying to do here, you know what the enemy's done. He come to kill, steal, and destroy. And this is what he's trying to do here. He's trying to destroy your vision. Okay? He's trying to destroy your vision so he can steal your identity. And if he does that, this will kill the effectiveness of your gifts and your callings. You want a 3-fold ministry? That's his. That's what he's come to do. God's ain't that way, but that's his. The fact is, if you don't know what you are, if you can't see what you are, you won't bear fruit, and you'll be no profit to the kingdom. We need to know that we're wheat. We need to know that we're planted with tares. We need to know that we're overcomers. We need to know that we are not so entangled with the things of this world that we won't bear fruit for the kingdom, because we will. The enemy's after you so this is what he wants you. He wants you to start weeding things out of your life. Why would he want that? Because the master said, don't do that. He always runs contrary. That's what he does. So if he could get you to pull the weed up out of your life, what did the master say would happen with that? You'd uproot the good with it. Enemy's trying to get you to do something for him that he can't achieve. And, one of the things we probably just ought to understand with this is that what God has blessed, he's not able to curse. He's got to get something else to do that. He's got to get somebody else to do that. He's got to get you to receive that. You know what? Even if it's somebody else that walked into your life and kicked you in the teeth with something, you have to receive that first. This doesn't have to be a handicap to you. You don't have to live in that. That's not who you are. Let them grow together, the master told the servants. What was said about the Israelites? So the more they were afflicted, the more that they grew. Just let them grow together. God said whatever was meant for your destruction, he was going to use it for your good. You guys realize that the tares that's been planted with you, this whole thing just kind of made me take a different look. And I kind of looked at this and thought, well, this is just fertilizer for me. Because if it doesn't have no effect on me, what good is it except it's a waste product? And I can use a waste product. God said he would use it for my good. So even if the enemy has tried to destroy me with this thing, this is exactly what God said that he would do. He would take what was meant to destroy me, and he's going to turn it into something for me. And not only is he going to turn it into something for me, he'll probably turn it into something for somebody else, and he'll turn it into a profit. I mean, we all just well to get on board with this. This is one of the things that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be profitable to the kingdom. This is what we're supposed to be doing. I want you guys to know that the things that has happened to you, it's not who you are. Those things were put there to try to affect you. They were trying to infect you, affect you. Causation. They were put there to try to predetermine something in your life. And they were put there to grow up with you so that you would recognize that thing in your whole life. That thing that come against you, you'll know it your whole life. And every time that you look at it, the same thing runs right back over top of you. Anything that was associated with it, which I'm assuming is all going to be bad since it's a tear, they should have spelled that a different way. It should have been a terror, Terror, instead of a Tare, because that's what he intended it to be, is terror in your life. And every time it comes up, fear gets a hold of you. You're confused. Everything is chaotic. And you don't know what to do. So you begin to shift your eyes around looking for what there is to do, what there is to fix this, what there is for a way out. The Lord said, the eye be single. And this is what's supposed to be our focus. Our eye should be on that we're wheat. Our eye should be on the sun, not worrying about the ground, not worried about the fertilizer, don't worry about the water. Put our eyes on the sun. There's something to be said for that. The things that were put here to affect us, these are the things that we're supposed to overcome. You believe this or not, you are who God says you are. You're not the weeds. Put that to you. You're not the weeds that's been planted in your life. That's not who you are. That's what's happening around you. That's what's been put there to try to affect you. But you are the seed of God. Bought and paid for, planted and watered and fertilized, given the sun. You've been given everything that you need to grow, to be fruitful. And then I kind of looked at it and was like, well, then he give us something else. He gives me something to make me better, because he gives me something to afflict me. Then something else I can overcome. Then I can grow and I can multiply. You understand how wheat grows. Wheat just don't grow up, and wheat ain't just one big piece of grain. It's like an ear of corn. It's got bukus of them on it. And it's made to seed that way. We're supposed to be abundant in that place of who we are. You know, I keep throwing this back to wheat, but I'm going to tell you, you are what God has planted you to be. And the abundance of your fruit, when it's your season, you're going to bear fruit. That's a biblical fact. In your season, you will bear fruit. So I'm just going to get just a touch deeper into some of this about who you're not. I don't want you guys to think you're just what you do for a living, because that's not it. You're not all the things that we see around us. So we're going to get a little deeper into some entangled roots, and you understand some of these things. And I'm not pointing fingers and I'm not poking. It is just kind of some of the stuff that run over me this morning. But I want you to know that you're not the alcoholic. You're not the drug addict. You're not the hot-headed rage addict. How about you guys? I'm telling you, this is who some of us are, or who we think that we are, who we thought that we were supposed to be, who the things that afflicted us in our lives, we just fell right in with them. We're not the porn addicted. You're not abused physically. You're not the abused mentally. You're not the molested. You're not the blind. You're not the crippled. You're not the deaf. This is not who you are. All of these things have been planted in your life to hinder you and to change your environment. That's not who you are. But those are some of the things that entangle us. And that's just some of the things. You guys understand that this world came from a world that we don't see. This is what is all behind the veil. This is what Jesus tore for us, that we would be able to see behind the veil, that we would be able to entangle ourselves with the kingdom and the Spirit and what He has given. Know that everything that is comes from seed. You understand something about God. You didn't see God plant the seed of you either, because God said He knew you before your mother's womb. See, you didn't see that. But what He done was He turned around and He gave you a book. And He told you what kind of seed you are in the book. And this was kind of the part that excited me. Matthew 8:27. Somebody get that. We're gonna read that real quick. 8:27. But I feel like we've walked around the other way enough. So we need to understand some things here. So this is when Jesus and the disciples are out on the boat and the water's raging and things are going on and they're freaking out and panicking. Go kick the bunkhouse, roll him out of bed. Don't you even care that we're going to die? I mean, you see what's going on around you. And so what did he do? He stepped out and he said, "Hold up, everything, just be still. No more. You're scaring, the faithful folk here." So the men marveled, saying, "Who can this be that even the winds and the sea obey him?" This is the manner of man that we're supposed to be. I want you to understand that. This is what God has told us that we are supposed to be. We are even that manner of godly people, that even the winds and the sea would have to obey us. Luke 10:19 says, "Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over the power of the enemy, and nothing's going to hurt you." over the power of the enemy, over the tares that's been planted in your life to influence you. You guys understand you were that those things came after you. The enemy intended for you to become an alcoholic. He intended for you to be molested. He intended for you to have a bad temper. He put these things right next to you. But Jesus told me that I was given power over the enemy. This is the manner of man I'm supposed to be. That when I put my hands to things, the things are supposed to change. When I speak to things, they should move. That my voice is just not for conversation. It's just not for some idle words back and forth, hello, but it was meant for power and authority. That's what's been given. You can believe that or not, but when Jesus came back and met his disciples again, he said he had been given all authority under heaven, on heaven and earth. And what did he tell us that we had? You guys get this, man. This is the reason these tares they need to stop affecting us in our life and in our walk. They need to quit being a distraction. They need to quit dictating what's going on with us. Every time something goes on and we snap back at it, I want you guys, that's a response that's been given to us. And it's the wrong response. God wrote us a whole book about our response. Not about that's why we should do it that way, but because that's who we are. He told us about all his love. He told us about his mercy. He told us about his grace. And he turned around and told me I'm supposed to be like him. There's a truth through all of this that has really stuck with me, and I struggle with it because I see things. But I understand that doing things, this is a witness of being. You ever hear that in the Bible? It says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. The witness of the things that you do is a witness of the things that you are. The problem with it is a lot of times we're doing things that we're not. We need to start being who God has given us to be. It's as simple as that. And that's all I have. Few minutes, praise and worship. You guys can clap for praise and worship.